Wahlmeier here this evening to talk to you about this book by Matthew Kelly, I Heard God Laugh. It's a pretty easy read, but we thought we'd kind of talk through one chapter at a time. This is our first night together. You see we still got beautiful decorations here, our Christmas tree, because we're leaving it up. We want some extra Christmas season. Still got our nativity scene up above Father Wahlmeier. And so this is meant to be kind of a informal review of the book. In case you just soon listen to a tape, is actually pick it up and read it. So in the beginning, the first chapter, he mentions that life is full of unexpected things. Life doesn't always unfold as planned.
I think he wrote this before COVID because it just seems so appropriate.
He doesn't mention COVID at all.
Right, so that's very providential, you know.
One thing, like recently you didn't plan to get COVID, did you?
No, over Christmas.
Your first Christmas as a priest, that was kind of a bad deal, huh?
Sure.
So, but you know, you adapt, you adjust. Thanks for not getting us sick.
Yeah.
Seriously, that was pretty nice. I wondered why you're coming up with those snow gloves on your hands, but anyway, yeah, things happen. As Christians, you know, we got to roll with the punches. We have to have hope. You know, when bad things happen, when good things happen, we kind of have to persevere with hope. Hope in the resurrection, ultimately, that's the ultimate trump card. We hope that things can get better. And we're not just victims of our circumstances. We're not just always losing the battle, always wallowing in our brokenness and sadness. We're not simply represented, as he say, by what has happened to us and what we have accomplished. We have potential that is, some of it's realized and some of it's unrealized. So I could potentially, you know, work out every day of the week. Probably won't happen, but, you know, that'd probably be a good thing. I could potentially not eat all these chocolates and desserts tonight. You know, that's also likely not happen, but we all have potential, things that can help us be better. We want to be our best and truest and highest self. And the Lord will help us to become the best possible version of ourselves. That's a Matthew Kelly classic phrase, and I kind of like it. And the Lord will help us and accompany us on that quest, on that search to be the best version of ourselves. So the question is, when we reflect upon ourselves, we will see that in some ways we are functioning quite well. In other ways, we may be kind of dysfunctional. You know, just about a month ago, we weren't communicating so well in the rectory. And you said, you know, can I kind of learn what's going on here and what the plan is a little bit more? And so we worked on that. I think we've improved communications. That helps. So we may be a little dysfunctional. You know, it wasn't really crisis, but we improved the communications and we're functioning a little bit better. So that's wonderful. So, you know, in some ways we may, he says, gravitate towards comfort or mediocrity. You know, and that's maybe not the best. So he says, are you thriving or just surviving in your life? Is it time to stop muddling along? Now, of course, this is January 11th. So this is the time of the year where we can make plans for the year. Maybe we can make a resolution. We can make a commitment. So this book is kind of handy in that respect. So
yeah, I mean, we make so many resolutions on all different aspects of our life. You know, whether that's physical, emotional, with relationships, but why not make a resolution also about your spiritual life? Because spiritual health is also important, and there's a spiritual pandemic going on in the world. It's called original sin, and it's been going on for a long time. And so a little spiritual training doesn't hurt. And so he talks on page 4, Matthew Kelly does, about the missing piece. And I kind of loved the image of the jigsaw puzzle because my family always does jigsaw puzzles around the holidays. And there's always a sneaky thing we try to do. We steal a piece and put it in our pocket so that we can be the last one to put the piece in. But when we don't work on our spiritual lives, I feel like we're missing a piece, and people are also missing a piece out of their puzzle. And there can be lots of frustrations that arise when we're missing that piece. And sometimes we purposely take that piece out of our lives by just not turning our attention a little bit and having some intentionality when it comes to prayer. So by reading this book, I think he's inviting us to really have all the pieces on the table and work at all of them, because if you don't have all of them on the table, they're not going to fit together. You're not going to be able to find how everything works together. So this missing piece, this prayer piece, this spiritual piece that we also need to make good resolutions on as we begin the new year. So I like where he says, there's no better time than right now to nurture your inner life, discover your spiritual needs, and feed your soul. So really appreciate that this time. And we kind of are in a spiritual, more in a spiritual realm, since we can't be as physically close together.
So the main purpose of the book really is to teach us about prayer. The best way to feed our soul, that spiritual component of our life. We are a body, we are mind, we are will, we're soul, the spiritual life. You can't see the soul, but it's what animates our whole person, is by a vibrant spiritual life. Some of us may, feel like, well, we go to church pretty well, but if we don't have that daily, vibrant spiritual life, then church doesn't mean as much. Now, all of us a lot of people have been taken away from the practice of the Sunday Mass in the pandemic. He doesn't get into that, as you said, but, it could be a time to really still work on the spiritual life, the personal relationship with Christ, and that daily habit of prayer. So this book is really meant to teach us how to pray, how to have a vibrant spiritual life. Nothing will change your life so completely, absolutely and forever, like learning how to really pray. Through prayer, we can become the best possible version of ourselves. And through having a daily habit of prayer, the best way to prepare for the unexpected thing, like your COVID, or like, whatever may happen, loss of a job, or, trip down the steps, whatever it is, the best way to prepare for the unexpected, the good or the bad, is by having a good prayer life. Prayer is the ultimate preparation for the unexpected. Prayer helps us develop the awareness, the virtue, the character that are essential when your life gets turned upside down. He talks about a tornado coming in town, affected electricity in 70,000 homes, and that a lot of trees were toppled. But some of the trees with the deep roots, they stayed up. And so, the person with deep roots has a spiritual life, has a prayer life, has that strong relationship with God, and can get through those storms of life in those difficult times.
And so Matthew Kelly makes a promise in this book. I think he likes to tell you right from the get-go, what this book is about. So he says, the promise of this book is that it will teach you how to pray and introduce you to a world of spirituality that most people have never experienced. He says there's a great difference between knowing about a person and knowing a person. And I think that difference can happen at Mass sometimes, when we know a lot about what's going on, but we don't know in the sense of entering into that relationship and that encounter with the person. And the metaphor I always like to think about is a movie star or a sports star. Anyone we see on TV, we know a lot about them, and we watch them, and we react one way. But if you met them in real life, you'd be a totally different person. You'd be all giddy and happy, and excited and ready to go. If this movie star, your superstar that you've always looked up to, is right in front of you, you'd behave differently. And so that's the sort of attitude we want to bring. So he begins talking about fulfilling this promise with finding your reason, he says. Asking the question, why should I pray? It's a good question to start with. What's the point of reading the rest of this book? And so I like how he says on page 9, Treasure your questions. Honor them enough to seek answers, and not just any answers. You yearn for deep personal answers to your deeply personal questions. I love that word question because in it is included the word quest. And this very much will be a quest, will be a journey. It's not something we just pick up and we're amazing at. Just like chess, you can't just learn the rules and all of a sudden you're a great chess player, right? It is a quest, it is a journey. Lots of skills to develop along the way, but definitely a journey that's worth it. I think about how he also quotes Rainer Maria Rilke. Says, be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves. I think about that great Nebraska football quote, in the deed, the glory. And not the goal, but the game. Yeah, not the victory, but the action in the deed, the glory. And so the quest itself of learning how to pray is a part of prayer. And so not to hold ourselves down by thinking, oh, I'm not there yet. No, like God has us right where he wants us whenever we just start to even desire to pray more. God's already there. So I really think that that's kind of the important little nuggets to draw out of that question. Examine your questions. Why should you pray? And, Matthew Kelly just leaves us with one of his main reasons. He says, I pray because I want to live one short life intentionally and deeply. To go to prayer to learn what matters most and what doesn't matter at all. To separate those things that are important from those that are of little and no consequence. I cannot live without prayer. I think that's a bold statement right there. Mm-hmm. So we get on to the habit and potential, forming those habits, learning those skills. He talks about habit as something worth pondering. The being of something is changeable. You is not only what it is, but what it can be. Habits are these parts of us, these strengths in us that we develop. We all have the potential to have these habits, but we only get them by doing them. I think Aristotle, he's an ancient philosopher. He talks about habits all the time. I love how he says sometimes, what is courage? The habit of courage. It's what the courageous man does. And so if we want to form these habits, we need to do the action of a courageous man or of a prayerful man. We need to just go ahead and sit down and do it. We can learn and learn and learn. We can read all the books we want. But until we just sit down and go through the action of praying, that's a big part of what we're trying to do. So he mentions it also, sometimes we just think we can't develop these habits. We're stuck in our own old habits. He says, I am who I am. Some people say that this is a half-truth. You are who you are, but you are also who you are capable of becoming. I thought that was really interesting because God's name in the Old Testament is I am who I am. None of us should have that name either. God is perfect in himself, and we're all still on the journey towards becoming more and more like Jesus. So we shouldn't just say I am who I am, because we're not. We have so much potential in the Lord's eyes.
Yeah, that potential, that's one thing we study in philosophy a lot about potential. And it's a great thing to realize that we all have great potential. We think of that with students, you see a baby, you think of all the baby could grow up and do. And, often people say, live your dream, and shoot for the stars, but at whatever age, we should realize that we have potential. And this is something that is very dear to all of us, can be very easily accomplished. So kind of the last focus on this chapter is the challenge that he puts to all of us. He says it takes 21 days to establish a new habit in our lives. And he challenges you to spend 10 minutes at the beginning of each of the next 21 days practicing the method of prayer we are about to explore. So, 10 minutes a day for 21 days. And to take a journal too, to maybe make a note or two just to say what the Lord said to you in this time. You could say, nothing. You could fill a page. You could put on a few thoughts, whatever it may be. There's no right or wrong answers, but nonetheless, the challenge that he presents is to all of us is a 21-day challenge. Kind of funny thing, the other night I was with a friend, and we were together on Friday night, and he came in and we said, well, somebody said, would you like a glass of wine? Would you like a beer? And he said, well, I just started a 21-day challenge to give up alcohol. But he said, but since you're here, Father Connor, I'll have some wine.
Started all over, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of an occasion sometimes to ruin good habits, but at least he had this 21-day notion in his mind and his plan. So maybe start again the next day, but it's a good challenge, and hopefully we're up to it.
There you go. Well, hope you'll enjoy this first chapter of I Heard God Laugh, and we'll be back with you next week and talk about chapter 2 and more on Matthew Kelly's approach to the prayer life and spiritual life.